Okay, this is gonna be a demonstration for how to do the coloring for your practice assignment with the journal entries in Photoshop. So, I'm just gonna show you guys the way I do coloring. There's a lot of different ways of how you can do it, but this is like my favorite way though. So you want to open up this window swatch. So for some reason you don't have that window open, you go to Windows on the top here, swatches. And it's going to give you basically like every color that you need or you want to start off with in terms of, coloring um, in Photoshop. So, my suggestion though with the coloring is, just try to get like the colors that you kind of want close to what you want. So I'm going to go with like more of a tannish tone for the skin tone of my daughter here, Ayumi. So I'm just going to pick out that color there. And what we're going to do is, we have separate layers for all these different things that we created, the trees, these words, the baby here. Now we're going to make another layer on the bottom, and I actually hid these layers before. I was doing something with Minnie Mouse before, but we didn't end up using it. I'm going to hide this layer with the picture layer, and I'm just going to create a new layer in between called the color layer. Okay, so keep things simple. You want to keep everything in this color layer. Obviously, if you wanted to, you can actually separate the layers into certain colors, but we're not gonna go super in depth with that. But usually when you're more organized and you keep things together in the layers in Photoshop, um, it is a lot easier to kind of like go to certain parts and only just color those certain things. But in terms of Photoshop and the layers, I like this. I tend to be a little bit messy with them. I'm not super organized. So we're gonna zoom in on the face here. Uh, so sometimes you may have to use the hand tool. So this hand tool is, you can press H or use that. I'm just gonna move closer to the person here. All right. Actually, I'm gonna zoom in one more. So okay, this is fine here. So a couple things you might want to do with the colors. Whenever I do coloring, I usually think about in terms of painting. So for example, we have this as kind of like the mid-tone here. And if you click on the swatch here on the top left, then you have like different values you can work with. So I tend to like go with a lighter value up here, and then a real close to like a white, but not exactly a white though. It's very close to it. So these would be like the values that I work with right here. And if you're kind of wondering how these swatches works or the how the colors are arranged, basically the lower the more down you go, the darker your values get, and then the more top right you go, the more saturated the colors get. So you can have like that very like orangish, where this is like a little bit more fair. So I'm gonna kind of go like in between down here to get this last tone here. So I'm just gonna work with these. I'm just kind of like arranging it like a palette though. So I have like my dark, my light, medium, and light values. In terms of like coloring, shading. You want to keep things kind of like simple at first, but if you want to add more colors to the skin tone, make it look more realistic, then um, something you can do with like the overlays, which I'm not gonna really go over in this video, just because I want to just keep things simple for now. So at this point now, I'm just going to use the mid-tone here. It's not really a mid-tone, but I'm just going to go with this color here. And one thing you can do is you can use the eyedropper tool. So this is the eyedropper tool right here. There's actually two commands to eyedropper tool. You can press I to get it to, real quick, or you can hold the Option or Alt key. If you hold the Option or Alt key, it'll just automatically give you that. So this is like kind of like the process that most people do when they do digital painting on the computer or when they do coloring. They use the eyedropper tool. If you look right here, it's going to just quickly pick out those colors. So you can basically pick out any color that's on the workspace. So I'm going to go with this mid-tone here. It's a little bit lighter than mid-tone, but as long as everything is below the layers and your other layers are multiple layers, you should be able to just color the picture and it should go behind your lines. Now, for some reason, you don't have to set the multiplier, which should have been done in the video before. You won't have that color show up. The multiply just basically gets rid of those white spaces. So I'm going back to the color layer, and you don't want to color on this layer because it's going to color on top of everything. I did Command Z to undo that. So I'm just taking my time, just coloring those areas neatly. That's all there is to the coloring. It's pretty simple. Now, obviously, if it goes a little bit messy, it's fine. This is again just a practice. I'm not gonna be real nitpicky on how things look. If you guys just have fun with it today. Don't be too concerned about details. Okay, so I'm actually gonna change this. I'm gonna call it the skin tone color or skin color. Just to show you like the benefits of keeping everything in a separate layer. So we set this as a skin tone here. Now I know a lot of you guys like to do shading and value in your work. So I'm going to show you a little trick you can do with this layer. So if I click on that, it's just going to give me just the skin tones here. If we click on this lock layer, the one that looks like a checkered, this will basically lock it within the layer. So for example, if I were to add other colors to it, it's only going to show up in that one spot. So it's almost like creating like a clipping mask on your artwork. But this is like an easy way of doing it. There's actually another process that you can do it, but I'm just showing you guys the easier way. But within here though, what you can do is if you want to do like blending, you can change your brush here. Because basically I just set up the midtone for my colors. It just changes to a 30 opacity. So one thing that's like different about the changing opacity is the more marks you make, the darker it'll get. So this is essentially how you do your shading in the Photoshop. I'm gonna go back to this layer here before I locked it. And, this history panel is really good, but again, I'm just gonna kind of like just place my darker values. Usually, around the eye, it's darker here. Again, I'm just kind of like eyeballing these values. Those, they might not be correct. But essentially, this is like how you do the shading on the computer. Again, you want to have like reference. You do shading and values. I'm just kind of like guessing it here though. And the nice thing about doing it this way though is you see how it's not like going over the edges. It's just kind of like going in those areas that you shaded here. So again, the more marks I make, the darker it gets. It's almost like kind of like you're doing like a regular painting in a way, except it's all on the computer. And one benefit of doing it all on the computer is you don't have to wait for things to dry. So now I go back with the kind of in between values. I'm just kind of just laying out some colors here. I'm not really too concerned about details yet. This is the lighter value. And then one thing about like skin tone is, or at least for like a baby, it's always like you always go a little bit softer with the values. Obviously, if it's someone that's older, more mature, then you go a little bit darker. So I kind of just established some values real quick. And again, you don't have to do shading. This is for those of you that want to do it. Since I have like most of my values established now, I can make my brush smaller. And I can actually use eyedrop these specific values. So you don't have to go back to the eyedropper there. You can actually, clean things up a little bit more through here. So, I like to like, try to use the in-between values, try to blend it a little bit more, make it look a little bit more realistic. Again, this type of thing usually takes time to do though. Oops. Grab the wrong tone here. And again, it probably would help if I had a reference to look at, but I'm just showing you like the motions of what you would do. But this is kind of like the stuff that this is kind of like the part where I talked about where it really helps to have a good foundation in arts. As this stuff you can't really have a shortcut for on the computer. It's like you either know it or you don't. But it's more of like you have to focus on the technical part about how to do it in Photoshop. That's kind of like the general gist of it. Of course, I would spend a little bit more time on this. I just want to make sure to keep this video short. You know, you can do the same thing with these trees here, so we can call it tree color is a completely separate layer. So I'm going to change this back to 100. So when I change this to 100, it's just going to go that dark green here. You know, same process that I did with the girl here. You know, I'm gonna actually experiment with the harder edge brush. And so we got that green. I'll do a darker tone here. Hard edge brush, dark tone, mid tone, light tone. Okay, so let's change this to 30. I drop the darker tone. I'm gonna make it a little bit darker on the bottom here. And this one I'm not gonna, you know, put the lock just to show you like what, you know, the difference though is between it. I'll try going more of like a pattern with these trees. Mid tone here. And let's just do a lighter tone on the top. Yeah, just have fun, experiment with it. You know, it doesn't have to always be like this very clean type of a drawing. You can, you know, feel free to add texture or patterns to, you know, the brush marks that you make. You know, it's almost like the same idea as painting. You know, like the, you know, details you add to the work, you know, the more interesting it'll look. You know, sometimes it's interesting to see like what it looks like without the line work. But, oh, that looks kind of weird.